Centennial Institute Policy Fellow Kelly Sloan joins me now from Denver, Colorado. Kelly, the EU relies on Russia for a lot of its energy needs, and that's made it difficult for Europe to impose strict sanctions over the conflict in Ukraine. Why is the EU so dependent on Russia for a lot of its energy?
Well, partly because, first of all, thanks for having me on. Largely because they've cut themselves off politically from any other energy source. Uh, Most of the EU countries, with the exception of France, aren't going nuclear, and that pretty much leaves them the option of oil or natural gas or coal. Now, coal, of course, is offensive to ecology, so most of the EU countries are trying to wean themselves off coal. That doesn't leave them a lot of options if they haven't given themselves the option of nuclear power, uh, and if they've you pretty much cut themselves off of domestic natural gas by frack bans and that kind of thing. So that leaves pretty much no option other than Russian natural gas and Russian oil.
EU officials have announced a plan to curb Russian gas imports by two-thirds by the end of the year. What kind of alternate sources do you think Europe can turn to make this transition possible?
Well, again, I mean, nuclear would be their best option if they wanted to, go with an option, non-fossil fuel option. Unfortunately, again, most of the EU countries have devolved themselves of that option. So there's not really a whole lot of alternatives that they can rely on. Uh, there is Canadian and American natural gas, but again, both those countries, both Canada and the U.S., have not really, in the last, especially over the last year, have not developed the infrastructure needed, the pipelines, LNG export terminals, that kind of thing, to be able to replace the natural gas demand uh, that exists in Europe. Uh, to be able to replace that the Russian natural gas. So really, the Europeans have not left themselves a lot of viable options. Now, of course, they're talking about renewables. We're talking about wind mostly, solar to a smaller extent, but renewables have natural, physical, and economic limitations to them, which can't be overcome overnight. The biggest obstacle to Europe or uh, uh, any part of the world fully adopting wind technology, for instance, is the problem of storage. We simply don't have the capability to store that kind of energy, um, and until we've eclipsed that physical, that kind of scientific obstacle, wind is not never going to amount to much more than about 20%, which is where it is. Uh, in most parts of the world, they're trying to adopt renewable technologies.
So certainly a big challenge ahead for the European Union, but what kind of impact would it likely have on Russia if the EU is able to end or at least greatly reduce its dependency on Russian oil and gas?
It would have a tremendous impact. I mean, that's uh, probably the best economic weapon that the West has, is to deny Russia one of its chief exports, which is energy, which is oil and natural gas. So it would have a tremendous impact. The problem is that, again, you have those technological and economic limitations. Uh, Europe simply has not embraced nuclear technology. They don't have a domestic source. U.S. and Canada or other parts of the world that produce oil and natural gas haven't really invested in the technology to be able to export that. Uh, so it's going to make it very difficult for the
Okay.
EU to completely win themselves off.
Okay. Kelly Sloan in Denver, thank you.
Thank you.